Hi strangers! If you're like me, you've been contemplating making a microwave cookbook for the past 4 years because you are convinced that you are on the brink of culinary mastery because you add microwaved eggs, avocado, and fresh tomatoes to your frozen burritos. I don't know anything about cooking, but it seems like a good idea. Or you're a photographer who wants to talk about blog flow. If that sounds like you, we should talk. Okay, so together we've already put together a slideshow. I'm going to link you to that video. I definitely recommend watching it if you haven't before you watch this one because it talks a lot about where I'm going to be getting the images from because I use the same images in my slideshow that I put in the blog post. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to be putting my blog post together a little bit differently using images that I selected for a slideshow, but haven't already paired them up so that way we can have a conversation about that. First, I wanted to revisit the idea that your website is for your future clients and not for your current clients. I feel like I really already drilled this in, but it's really important for you to take care of your clients so that they aren't expecting to be on your blog. That shouldn't be an expectation that they have set, and as long as we have made really cool things for our clients and they are very happy, I don't think that that's an expectation that most of them have, but I just wanted to put it out there. The blog is for your future clients, and that is because it is a marketing tool, like a really important marketing tool. I feel like the blog posts and seeing sort of like how you do a full wedding day turns clients onto your work and makes them want to be a part of what it is that you provide for them, or it will repel them, which is also very good. It's good to have polarizing work. So I know a lot of us started in photography because we kind of wanted to make art. It's really important for us to be aware of situations in which we thrive so that way we can like keep creating our best art. So again, I'm gonna link you guys to an article about finding your style. If that's not something you really addressed in your work, if you haven't done your homework yet from that article, then that might be something that you want to explore because we can only show what we love if we know what we love. By showing the things that we love, we are more likely to get to do more of it. And when we are doing art that we want to do, and when you're doing art that you want to do, you end up being happier. Getting people to connect to the work that you really love is the best way to get happy clients. Not only because you're going to be doing work that you're really happy about, but if you are setting expectations up on your blog for things that you don't necessarily love doing, you might not do it the same way in the future. And then you might lead to unhappy clients because they're sort of expecting the thing that you put up on your blog that you don't really love. And it's no good for everybody. You are doing yourself a massive disservice if you're putting things on your blog that you don't want to recreate or things that you don't want to do. For example, I shoot a lot of style shoots. Not a ton, but I've shot a lot over the years, and I also do like really beautifully styled editorial work for magazines, and I love doing them. I love the people that are a part of them. I love working with one magazine in particular, but you probably won't see any of that work anywhere because I'm a wedding photographer and my clients are real people, and I don't want to set expectations that I can do on a wedding day what a set of 15 people and a Ukrainian model did on the beach for an hour. Do you know what I mean? Like, that would be a disservice to my client. So that is not something that I end up putting on my blog for the most part. I don't feel obligated to put every wedding, every session, or every part of the day on my blog. It's better to be selective with what you choose to show. If you only have a handful of really badass weddings that you connected with and you really feel like allowed you to explore the part of yourself that makes you happy when you're working, then that should be what you're showing. And that's sort of what I'm talking about. So as we're choosing these images, one thing to keep in mind is that this is an outsider. They weren't a part of the wedding. You want to make sure that you're not including images that are maybe confusing for the storyline. I would say that whenever I go through and I critique blog posts, one of the things that I say a lot of the time is that I have no idea what's happening here. So there'll be like a shoe, what's the shoe thing where they hold the shoe up? I don't know that those necessarily speak to any sort of storyline. I feel like those images tend to just be confusing more than anything else. So that's something that I would likely not include. You know, people coming to your site for the first time have no context for what's happening there. Feel free to leave stuff out. You really get to play God. Sam Hurd only blogs portraits for the most part because it is really important to him to be hired for his ability to create and craft portraits more so than his photojournalistic ability. So if you have something specific that you really want to be hired for, something like that might be important for you to keep in mind. I very much like to say that I'm a storyteller, like most wedding photographers. So that is something that I keep in mind whenever I'm blogging. One thing that I will say is a lot of my clients say that the getting ready portion of the day isn't really important to them. And I feel like I've sort of set those expectations up on my blog, or at least people that come to my blog might be a little turned off because I don't have a ton of getting ready pictures. Like this wedding had 0. This is another one where I think I showed There's one getting ready picture from this wedding. Here's another one where, other than details, we have 4 images of getting ready. It's not a time of day that I get really excited about, so I tend to leave it out, and as a result, most of my clients end up not caring about it, or the people that really care about it might just not hire me. So today we are going to be working on a wedding from 2015, because it's 2019, and whatever, I'm behind on blogging. It's fine. I've blogged things from the past year. This was a wedding that was a little bit emotionally difficult for me. I cried so much during this wedding. The bride was supposed to get married the next year, but it turned out that she had a really aggressive form of cancer, and so they ended up moving everything up, and the doctor that kind of saved her life was at the reception and gave a toast, and I cried so much. So I've been wanting to share this story so much, but I've been too connected to it. So this wedding is from 2015. It is all the images that I selected and chose as read to potentially be used in a slideshow. The slideshow's already been put together, but I'm going to be pairing up the diptychs and going through how I would tell this story with you guys today. There are 402 images here, but they're all in black and white and color. I want to get that down to like maybe 70 or 80 images. Let's see if we can do it. This was a wedding that took place in our childhood home. And so I made sure to get lots of details, but also I was looking for like similar color themes. So this is something that I look for when I'm shooting, and it's something that I look for whenever I'm putting the blog post together. I'm definitely going to touch more on this as we're pairing up diptychs and putting things together, but I just wanted to show you guys. I was definitely looking at their wallpaper and trying to include specific colors that were around the house, so that way I could keep this in mind as I was putting together a story later. I really like having sort of like a color themed story on a wedding day that is often unrelated maybe to the colors that they've chosen for their wedding. It's just whatever happens to be sort of predominantly displayed. And you can definitely see this in the blog post that I already have up. I specifically will use the same colors and textures to put together stories on my blog post. So here's more. Yeah, I just made sure that I was putting all the sort of like yellow images together. Here, these were totally different times of the day, but because this image was the only one from getting ready that was blue, and this image had blue in it, I paired them together. So as I start to go through the images, what I'm going to be looking for are images that help to tell the story the way that you would storyboard for a movie. So what I want are introductory and scene setting images. I want images that sort of introduce the main characters slowly. So I definitely don't want the first images to be somebody staring straight into the camera, like smiling, looking at the camera. I'm going to make sure that I'm only including pictures that sort of speak to a running narrative or a story. And I'm going to make sure that I'm including lots of transitional photos, and that I'm going to end with a solid zooming out shot, or something that's sort of further away, or something that sort of brings closure to the story. And I'm just going to speed this up. I'm just going to be selecting the images that I think speak to the story. And I'm doing this in Photo Mechanic. I have culled the images down to 96. I feel fine with that. I started out with 202, so I more than cut it in half. And I sort of over selected some images because I just want to make sure that whenever I'm pulling them into narrative, I have enough. I included most of the details. One thing that I will do often is not include a ton of details for the slideshow, because it's timed and it's awkward to stare at just table settings for like 8 seconds if you have 4 in a row. One thing that I might do is go back into details. I don't think I'm going to do it. I definitely want to concentrate more on storytelling, but it's just something to keep in mind. That's the one thing that I will often go back and include more of. So I'm going to take all of the images that I don't want and put them in another folder. So before we start building the blog post, I have one more thing that I want to show you. And this is my blog post workflow. This is what I look for as I'm putting together a blog post. So the first thing that I want to do is write it out. And that is because if I spend all of my time curating and culling, I'm going to want to write a sentence, because I'm like, no, I've already done all the hard stuff. And honestly, writing about it is like the hardest thing. You don't have to type a lot. You just need something for the sake of SEO. You want to make sure that if there is a venue, that you're including the venue and you're linking back to people. It's polite, and also it's good for SEO. I'm not going to talk a lot about SEO. I don't know a lot about SEO. The next thing that I'm going to make sure that I'm doing with blog posts is I'm going to make sure that I'm finding transitional images. Again, scene setting, sort of setting things up. I want to make sure I'm grouping my black and whites together, and I'll show you how I do that. I just want to make sure that it's it's not jarring to sort of go back and forth between color and black and white, and I think it kind of is. For portraits, I'm going to make sure that I'm going like left, right, and not just having a bunch of center composed images, or at least I'm putting in diptychs to sort of like break that up. For my blog, I have to choose a header and a portrait image. Again, linking back to Venue, linking to Planner, name, SEO, and then I always upload 3 images that I've blogged to Planoly. Nobody subscribes to blogs anymore. You sort of have to have a call to action to get people to go to your blog. So that's it. That is my blog post workflow. So for the sake of scene setting images, I am going to start looking at some of the details. And you can see by looking at these that there are some colors that sort of come together. Like this might be a good diptych for me to put together because they're light colors, but they're very similar. And I think I like this pattern wallpaper and that I'd rather include it, and I don't have another vertical to pair it up with. So I'm going to put that in here instead. I might have them switch places. Cool. I like that. I might start with the puppy immediately after because, again, these are sort of like all lighter. This image is a little bit lighter, but again, without being so like in your face, staring straight at the camera. Head down to him doing his jacket. I really like this image, but it's very orange, so I'm going to save it for whenever I have some warmer pictures a little bit later. I'm just going to go green in the wallpaper to this green image, and then I'm going to start introducing the bride. So here I'm going to group some of my black and whites together. I have 2 verticals that I specifically chose because they're both black and white. I'm going to include this one too, which I can just do by double tapping. I don't know why I'm dragging. And then I'm going to go back into color images. So I'm going to include this cute one of her dog, and then I'm going to jump downstairs to her with her dad. Again, I like this image, but it was too warm for us to include earlier, so I might include that here. But I don't think there's enough of a story there, so I'm going to take it back out. Here's more of the wallpaper. It's sort of like a scotch and a baby hand. Everybody likes that. I'm going to include the first look with the father because I think it was really sweet. And then we are going to head over to the ceremony. So technically, this picture took place before this one, but I'm going to include this one before because it's showing that we are now outside. It's sort of zooming out and introducing us into the scene. So here I have a bunch of verticals, and I'm going to put them together for you guys to see how we're going to pair them up. These 2 go together both thematically, but also color-wise. So I'm going to drag these guys underneath. When possible, I like to separate my diptychs so they're not all together. So I'm just going to drag this image in between. I really like this laughing picture, so I'm going to put it in. I have some decisions to make about how I'm going to pair these up. I think that these 2 paler ones go better together. So I am going to put the tent, because I really like the tent photo, next to him. And then I'm going to have her walking down the aisle with her dad. So here's close up, far away, close up, far away. I have some diptychs here, but you can see it's like darker on one side and lighter on the other. I think I'm going to save this crying image for the kiss photo because the kiss photo is vertical and I want to make sure that I'm pairing up verticals because on my blog otherwise you wouldn't be able to see the images correctly. I don't have a diptych that really works well with this one because it's too light toned, so I might not include it at all. But I can get one more sort of like close up, further away, close up, let's see, and then crying, kiss. Oh wait, I want to make sure. I think this was like a happy laughy one. If you hit the space bar in narrative, it makes the image bigger so you can view things. So I'm going to do this one, and they're married. So they go inside the tent, and then I am going to use all these images, but that means that my first portrait that I want to include is going to be darker and not the ones that I have right here. So I'm going to skip ahead in the timeline. I'm going to include this one of them together, and then it's very much center composed, so I'm going to jump in with 2 diptychs. So we can see that 3 of these are cropped very similarly. I don't want to include all of them. I don't want to water down my good shots with that. So I have to choose. I'm going to do laughing and full body. And then I'm going to include this one. And then I could probably include 2 more. So those are too close. I'm going to include those 2. And I'm going to see what it looks like swapped. I'm okay not including any of the further away field ones. I like them, but I'm okay not including them. And I'm also okay not including those portraits. So I'm going to get them walking through the forest again. Just as a transition, and then I think I'm going to introduce some black and whites. So I don't have a good vertical to pair up with this black and white, so I might just avoid it. And then I think these 2 are too similar, so I just might not include either. So no black and white portraits. I do have a Brenizer that I want to include, but it's very much center weighted, and it's from further away, so I'm going to do this more close up one than this Brenizer. And then I'm going to include this one because I really like it. And then them walking. Ooh, but I forgot about this one, and I really like it. So I'm going to go back and see if there is another time that I can work that in. So it's a little bit darker, but it's a diptych. So I might be able to pair it up with this one of them holding hands. I might be able to pair it up with... I feel like these are too different, so I can't pair them up to now tonally. I'm not married enough to the image for me to include it. So I am just going to use this as my transition image and then take these out. So this Blue Hour photo you can see was taken at the beginning of the reception, but whenever I use this image, it's probably going to happen at the very end of the night. I usually end up taking a Blue Hour portrait. I set an alarm on my watch so that I can make sure that I'm going out and doing it. And that's something that I keep in mind for the closer. I usually don't include toast pictures, but this one had a lot of really touching toasts. So I think I'm going to include all of those unless I want to take some out. I was shooting Nikon and Canon at this wedding, and I can definitely tell by the skin tones because some of them were a little bit more pink. I think that's fine. I'm just going to toss in all these dance pictures. But I'm going to move the ones of them kissing to the end because I really want the story to sort of like end with them, and that may not have necessarily happened at the end of the night. And there are a bunch of them in a row, so I'm just going to take them and sort of weave them in with the others. The only photos we really have left are them sort of like sitting around the campfire. I think what I'm going to do is put those in earlier in the night. I think that would make more sense before jumping into the dance party. So maybe we could end with them sort of like curled up on the couch with their dog. Sort of like end with tea. I'm just moving things around. So the reason that I moved this one under it is because this one's lighter at the bottom. And I wanted it to sort of move into the lightness of this one. I'm going to see how this works. I'm going to do one more sort of far away, and then maybe Blue Hour. Since I have dark night shots, I don't feel comfortable ending on the Blue Hour image. So I'm going to take that out. And I'm going to go back up. First dances. I don't feel like it totally works there either. I could replace this image, which I think works because we have this little block of blue here. Is it too jarring? I will spend most of my time just moving things around once I put them into place. One thing that I love about narrative is that you can zoom out as much as you want. I think it's really important whenever you're looking at a blog post to think of it as sort of like a cohesive full art piece. I talk about this in the video about how to build album spreads as well. I think it's really important for flow for it to go together. So here you can see we're sort of starting off light and transitioning into dark. We get some green here, move into green, keeping all my black and whites together, sort of repeating textures and having busier images put together, including transitional images, making sure that things are tonally matching, breaking up the diptychs with horizontal images as much as possible that sort of keeps the eye moving, sort of zigzagging down the page. Whenever you're doing portraits, making sure you're like getting close and zooming out an appropriate amount of times. I am going to pop this image right here, actually right here, because I think it's better that this image, which is darker, sort of goes into that. Making sure that you're pairing up light colors together, leaving out parts of the day that you don't necessarily feel 100% about, and then ending by concluding the story. So that is how I put together a blog post. All I would have to do is export the images from there. And I really don't have to show you guys how I would do an engagement session because the way that I put together portraits is exactly what I keep in mind. Get close, get further away, make sure that the eyes are moving down the page and that you're not just making it really easy for them to scroll really fast past a bunch of center composed images, which is like most of my images are center composed. So try not to make it really easy for people to just go really fast on your blog. Another critique that I give a lot whenever I'm looking through people's blog posts or their portfolios is that I can get a good sense of what your comfort zone is as you're shooting, because you're basically framing everybody the same way in different places. So I can tell that you stand about 10 feet away from your couples whenever you're shooting, or that whenever you do walk in, you only walk in so far, or that whenever you get further back, you're only going so far. Especially whenever you're clumping them together on your blog post, you definitely get a sense for Like, this is where you are standing and not getting to take in how beautiful the images are. It's sort of the same thing whenever you are in a really beautiful place and you've taken an incredible photo. Don't include 3 that are very similar to that image, because all you're doing is watering down that really great photo by showing 2 that don't really stack up. So instead of thinking like great shot, I'm thinking cool location, or like what a lovely couple, instead of concentrating on sort of what your abilities are. So don't water down your really amazing images by including mediocre versions of the same one or any other versions of the same one. So after I put this together, I will very often send it to my friend Lynn, and she will help me take out images. She's really honest about when I have been watering down my work. The biggest tip for blogging I have is to have a friend go through it. You might be connected to the images, or you might be including images that don't really help tell the story, and having a third party go through it that wasn't connected to the day in any way and isn't connected to the images will really help you sort of take it out, because long blog posts are difficult to get through. I ended up using 73 images, which is a number that I feel very comfortable with, but I often see blog posts that are like well over 150 images, and you'll go through like 20 getting ready pictures before you even get to anything. And I think it's overkill. I think clients like to see that stuff, but I think that if you want them to go through a bunch of your work, it might be a little bit hard to stomach and you're also not showing all of your best images. Like, I have a very hard time believing that you took like 150 amazing images on the wedding day. Like, maybe you did, but I feel like it's more impactful if you can say it in less. So something to keep in mind. And I really hope this was helpful for you guys. If you want me to go more into any part of that, I am happy to do it. I know this video is already very long, but I am so glad that this was something that you guys wanted to see, because it's something that I really wanted to share. And thank you guys so much for making these videos possible. Thank you for backing me on Patreon and for making suggestions. I make this stuff for you guys, so if you have questions, please let me know, send me a message or leave a comment. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a really, really good day. I'm gonna go eat a frozen burrito.